And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing me every step of my life.
On the Word Network.
You know why I really love Nick Hood as a minister? I watched his father do it, and he took over for the church, and he was one of us, but he really turned out to be a great minister. I know it's hard, and that's something that I know that all ministers may not be doing what they're doing because for the right reasons, but I know it's hard. I know he's a beautiful man, and we've been knowing each other for over 50 years. I believe in him. He's inspired me in so many ways to do what I'm doing and try to be the best at it. Make sure you watch Nick Hood's ministries. You'll never be the same.
And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing me every step of my life.
On the Word Network.
This is a new ministry which is just starting. Reverend Hood needs your help in sharing the good news of Jesus Christ and His power throughout the world. If you would be so kind as to send a donation to Nicholas Hood III Ministries of any amount, Reverend Hood will send you a free complimentary copy of his book of original personal prayers and beautiful photographs entitled The Test, The Strength, The Endurance, and The Way Out. Welcome to Nicholas Hood III Ministries, a ministry of hope, spiritual inspiration, personal power guided by Christian love. May the power of God's Holy Spirit fall upon you as you sit back and enjoy today's program. I introduce you now to Pastor Nicholas Hood III.
Now, faith, hope, love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. Let me say it again. Now, faith, hope, love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. For the last several weeks at my church, I've been preaching literally one word a week from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, talking about the elements of love. And what are they? The Apostle Paul tells us that love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, neither is love boastful, arrogant, or rude. Love does not insist on its own way, but rather love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And then when we get to the end of 1 Corinthians 13 and the 13th verse, Paul says, now faith, hope, love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. And so let's take a moment and break it down. What is faith? The Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 11, he says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is what we believe as Christians. Faith is what our religion is all about. But the Apostle Paul tells us at the beginning of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, right there in the first and the second verse, he says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but if I have not love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And then he talks about faith. He says, and if I have faith so as to move mountains, and I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries. But if I have not love, I am nothing. And so what is Paul telling us about faith here? He's saying, if your faith is strong enough, you can move a mountain. So why is love stronger than faith? Well, what good is a faithful person if they're not nice? What good is a faithful person if they're not kind? What good is your faith if you're jealous? I'm sure somebody looking at this program today has met people who are great churchgoers. They know all the words to the song. They can quote you Bible verses. They know how to get happy. They've got all the right religious expressions, but they are a turnoff. I know people with great faith who, and you know, we look at the faithful people, ministers, faithful lay people. We look at faithful people, but sometimes they're the biggest turnoff for the Christian faith. Jesus Christ wants you and me to bring others to the Lord. He wants us, you and me, to bring people to God. But how can we bring to God if we are putting up barriers? What good is it for the growth of the church if the faithful don't want to accept women, don't want to accept women as preachers, don't want to accept women as teachers? And I know there are verses in the Bible where the Apostle Paul has said it very clearly. It's not, he says at one point, it's not right for a woman to teach a man. And so many churches have adopted the position that women can't lead. Women should not lead. By the same token, the Apostle Paul preaches about homosexuality as an abomination. And, you know, I'm not here today to trumpet homosexuality, but the point that I'm making is, how can we build a church if we are turning people off? I know people who've been terribly turned off from the church, not because of homosexuality, not because of women in the pulpit, but they're just turned off because they're just mean people. And, you know, when a person is mean, how can you encourage other people to accept the love of Jesus Christ? And so Paul tells us that faith, hope, love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. By the same token, Paul tells us that hope is important. And what is hope? Hope, my friends, is the ability to dream. Our faith is the ability to believe. Hope is the ability to dream. And hope is a wonderful thing. Some of the saddest people I've ever met in life are people who don't know how to hope. They've been so beaten down, so cast down, so dejected, so depressed, they can't envision anything better. From the tradition I come from, an African-American tradition, where, you know, I come from people who were enslaved in Kentucky. I know who my white great-grandfather was, great-great-grandfather, and his name was William Hood. And, you know, I've talked about that on this show before. But my great-grandfather, the son of William Hood, my great-grandfather's Nicholas Hood, the first, he had a dream of being free. And so he ran away from slavery. And he and his little brother, they ran away from slavery because they dreamed of a better life. And I bet you there's somebody looking at this today who's had a dream of a better life, a dream of having more money, a dream of being healthy, a dream of having a nicer house, a dream of wearing nicer clothes, a dream of an education, a dream of love, a love that is real. And that's a wonderful thing. But to me, some of the saddest people I've ever met are people who just can't dream. people who are so beaten down, so cast down, so dejected, they can't look up. And the Apostle Paul tells us that hope is important because the world moves on hope. The United States of America has moved on the hope in my lifetime. We've moved from segregation to integration. And that may seem like a small thing, but I'm old enough to remember the segregated bathrooms and segregated public facilities in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I was born. And what I'm saying, my friends, is that we've come a long way as a country, and we've come a long way because people like Martin Luther King Jr., Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, John Lewis, Andrew Young, Jesse Jackson. These are individuals, Fannie Lou Hamer, who dreamed that we could have freedom in our lifetime. And so it is very important to hope. But like faith, what good is your hope if you're a mean person? What good is your hope if you're jealous? What good is hope if you want to hold somebody else back? And then what good is hope if you want to do that in the name of the Lord? And so Paul tells us faith, hope, and love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. And so how does love show itself in the face of faith and hope? Number one, you and I must acquaint ourselves with love. And what I mean by acquainting yourself with love means understand, what does love really look like? Not just wishy-wishy, she poo-poo kind of love, but what does it mean to really love? And, I've been saying all along, in my understanding of 1 Corinthians 13, Paul is not just talking about a romantic love. To all that we know about the Apostle Paul, he never got married. But he's one of the greatest proponents of love that we've ever known. And part of the reason why Paul is a great proponent of love is that the vision that he had of love is not just between lovers, it's not just between husbands and wives, but the kind of love Paul is thinking about is an agape love, a love that's selfless, a love that is generous, gracious, and good. The kind of relationships that you can build not just in the bedroom, not just between a husband and a wife, but the kind of relationships that you build at work, the kind of relationships you have with your neighbor, the relationship, any human contact that we have, the contact that you have with members of a church, the contact that you have with your family members. What Paul is telling us is that you and I should strive to be kind, to strive not to be jealous. And we need to acquaint ourselves with this love. And then after we acquaint ourselves with love, we need to apply this love in everything that we do. And the more we try to apply love in our human relationships, what we find is that we become better people. The one who really benefits from love is yourself. And so if you're looking at this program, and I want you to ask yourself, who is it who gets on my nerves? Is it my brother? Is it my sister? Is it my mother? Is it my father? Who gets on my nerves? And then ask yourself, how can I apply the love of Jesus Christ into my personal life? How can I apply love to somebody I'm a caregiver for? Maybe you're sick and you're looking at this program. I've talked with people over the last several weeks who've called into the show, and they've told me, there are people that really get on my nerves. There's some folk who, are really supposed to help me, but they're not nice to me. And how, can I maintain my faith when somebody who's supposed to be giving me care is getting on my nerves? And what I am offering to you today, my friends, is this. I want you to think about your life. And I want you to think not just about who's getting on your nerves, but I want you to think in terms of how can I, as a man, how can I, as a woman, strive for that eternal kingdom that Jesus has set before each of us? How can I do that without being a loving person? And I tell you, you cannot. The only way you can get into the kingdom of heaven is you've got to be loving. And that means love the caregiver. If you are giving care for somebody else, be human with the person you're caring for. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when a person is incapacitated, they're not their full self. When a person can't walk, can't talk, can't think the way that they used to think or should be thinking, sometimes you have to think for them. Sometimes you've got to help them put on their clothes or help them get out of their clothes, to help them put on their socks, help them to roll down the socks, to help them put one foot after the next into the shoe. That is love. And the more you do that, and not just to physically put the sock on the foot, the shoe on the foot, but to actually do it with kindness, to do it with gentleness, to do it with compassion. And the more you and I strive for compassion in our human relationships, the better we become as men, the better we become as women. And so that, my friends, is the word that I give you today. And I leave you where I began. Now, faith, hope, love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. You can be the most faithful person in the world, but if you act like a jerk, you do the Lord a disservice. You can be the most hopeful person in the world. You can dream dreams that haven't been seen before. You can imagine bright vistas and horizons. But if you're not a nice person, if you can't find a gracious bone in your body, if you can't find a way to be good and kind and not jealous and envious of somebody else, if you cannot find a way to get beyond the temptation to be arrogant, you have to ask yourself, how good is the quality of my faith? And so that's the word that I leave you with today. I want to challenge you right there in your home. I want to challenge you in your bedroom. I want to challenge you in your living room. And my challenge for you today is strive for love. Strive to be loving and kind. Strive to be compassionate in all that you do. And the more you strive for compassion, the more you strive for faithfulness, the more you strive for gentleness, the better you will be as a person. God bless you. God keep you. Thanks so much for tuning into the program today. Stick around. I'm going to come back. And when I come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this faith, hope, and love. God bless.
America used to be considered a godly country. It doesn't seem to be that way to me now. And I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but it's so many things they're okaying for the wrong reasons. There's not godly reason. People need to really open up the Bible, the B-I-B-L-E, and look in it and really get it into their heart. And this, the way Reverend Hood is doing this is a comfortable way. It's not forcing anything on people. It's a comfortable way and a loving way for it to continue to move in that direction.
The way Reverend Hood presents it, you can understand it, and it makes you want to delve into the Bible even more so that you can see more, because it seems like the program goes off too fast. We need the bread the bread of life.
We really do.
These days, we need it more than ever. And Reverend Hood's ministry on TV is giving us our bread.
Thanks so much for sticking with me during today's program. I've been talking about why love is greater than faith and hope. And that might sound strange because the church is built on faith. We sing a song, "My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand." And so it may seem odd to have a preacher say that your love is more important than your faith. And not only is your love more important than your faith, your love is more important than hope. I'm going to be honest. There are a lot of things that I don't understand in life. There are a lot of people I don't understand. But the one thing I do understand is love. And because I understand love, I know that even if I make a mistake, I try to make a mistake in love. And what do you mean, Reverend, you make a mistake in love? That means that if I have to make a decision and I really don't know the answer, then what I pray to the Lord is quite simply, what is the most loving response I can give? If I am confronted with an inmate in prison, I may not understand why they're in prison. I may not understand what got them into prison. I may not understand what's on their mind. But the one thing I do know is love every human being as an individual, as a human being. And in the process of doing that, I'd say most times I get it right. And sometimes I don't get it right. And when I don't get it right, it's usually because somebody could care less. I don't know if anybody looking at this program has ever met somebody who could care less if you were kind, who could care less if you were gracious, who could care less if you were loving. There's some people who really don't care. They just want to get their own way, have their own way, do their own thing, and they will try their best to run over everybody, and they'll try their best to run over you. And I bet you somebody looking at this today has had to deal with somebody who wanted to run over you. And, I'm not saying that to be loving and kind and gracious, generous and good means that you have to let somebody run over you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is you have to protect yourself. And in the process of protecting yourself, what you will find is that, even then, you can protect yourself without necessarily having to annihilate the next person. So I encourage you this day to strive for love in all that you do. Even if you don't know where you're headed, you don't know what to do next, you don't know who to trust. Anybody looking at this ever wonder, who can I trust? Who can I believe in? But if you respond in love, what you will find is that the Lord will protect you. The Lord will guide you. The Lord will show you what you can't show yourself. Now, today, I have a request for everyone looking at this program. And my request is simple. I'm trying to spread the good news of Jesus Christ. I feel really called to spread a message of love and hope and joy in this faith. And in the process of doing that, I need you. I really need your partnership with me. I really am reaching out to you. I thank you for taking the time to look at this program. I thank you for taking the time, those of you who have been supporting this program. And this program is really a ministry of love. And one of my favorite Bible verses is from 1 John 4:18, where John says, perfect love casts out all fear. And the way I interpret that verse, it means that I may not know really what I'm doing. I may not know where I'm headed. I may not know who to trust and who not to trust. But the one thing I do know is that if I am loving in my actions, if I am loving with my thoughts, that in the process, and if I'm loving with the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, what I believe is that the Lord will make a way out of no way. And I believe for those of you who are looking at this program who are sick and you're wondering how can my condition change, just reach out to the Lord in love. Reach out to your neighbor in love. And what you will find is that the Lord will bless you. And I'm asking today that you love this ministry. I am asking today that you share your love with this ministry. And by sharing your love, I'd like you to ask yourself, can I support this ministry financially? At whatever level, $5, $10, $100, $1,000. You pick the area, the level that you are comfortable with. And I want you to ask, and I want you to pray to the Lord and ask the Lord, how can I help Nick Hood in this ministry of faith, this ministry of hope, this ministry of love? My friends, all I'm trying to do is share the good news of the Lord Jesus Christ. All I'm trying to do is to let you and your neighbor, and even those that you and I can't imagine who might be watching or who need to watch this program. And I need your help. I thank God that I'm a year and a half into this ministry. And my wife tells me, she says, Nick is no longer new. I said, but Denise is new to me. And as long as it's new to me, it's new. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope to see you next weekend, next Saturday, 2:30 p.m. But you know, you don't have to wait till Saturday. If you go on YouTube, the Word Network is there. If you go on Facebook, you can find me. And you'll hear the Word of God. God bless, God keep you. And remember, I'm praying for you. God bless.
Thank you for watching today's program. We hope you've been blessed in a powerful way. Just knowing you took the time to watch today's broadcast is a great encouragement to Pastor Nick Hood. If this broadcast has been a blessing to you, we ask that you mail a tax-free donation to Nicholas Hood Ministries at 4535 Chrysler Drive, Detroit, Michigan, 48201.
And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing